It's time for Operation Freedom with your host, Dr. Dave Janda, on Southeast Michigan's conservative powerhouse, WAAM Talk 1600.
Thanks for welcome back to WAAM Talk 1600's Operating Theater. It's the only OR in all talk radio. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker, linked to our main freedom bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor. We're here every Sunday for you from 2 to 5 Eastern to provide you information the bought-off lamestream fake media, a tentacle of the deep state, will never present. Why? Because that deep state, whatever you want to call it, globalist syndicate, new world order crowd, whatever you want to call it, totalitarian thugs is what I call them. They want to strip you of what remaining freedoms and liberties you have left. And our goal is to educate and empower you so that they are unable to toast the remainder of your freedoms, your liberties, and whatever financial resources that you've been able to accumulate. Every week in our operating room, we dissect current events that are impacting you, your family, your business, our community, and our country. And today is no different. In fact, the Freedom Light is always on for you at DaveJanda.com. 24/7, we post data, facts, science, and information that focuses on your freedom, your liberty, and your welfare. And the deep state despises it. The attacks that site takes on a daily basis are enormous, from not just from little facilities that are based in Virginia, but from throughout the world. The deep state despises what we do, but we keep doing it. Why? Because we're dedicated to you, to put you ahead of the curve. And that's why the deep state tries to, one, shut down this broadcast every week, why they try to shut down DaveJanda.com, why they try to suppress the videos that I still, with the help of our IT team, are able to put up on YouTube or on Rumble. But where the real meat of the matter is DaveJanda.com with the extra shows, extra content, extra guests. I just posted, I did an interview with Bob Destro, who's a law professor, a constitutional scholar, and the former Assistant Secretary of State in the Trump administration. And that was exclusively for our subscribers, and our subscribers said it was such an important interview because we dissect the totalitarian jab mandates from the legal side with Bob Destro. Then we dissect what's happening around the world foreign affair-wise. I assure you, you will never get this information in the bought-off lamestream fake media, including Fox. And then we go into human rights issues. So our subscribers said, you got to make this public. So this morning, we made it public. And all you have to do is go to DaveJanda.com. The interview's there. Or it's on Rumble. Your choice. Bottom line, folks, we bring to our operating room information and guests the bought-off lamestream fake media either ignores because it doesn't fit into their preconceived, politically correct bought-off agenda, or because they're petrified. They're petrified of what might happen if they actually tell you what you need to know. This show is about your freedom, your political, your economic, your financial, and your health care freedom. I am honored to have back with me someone who is a very dear friend and our first guest, TraderStef. She puts her life on the line for all that she does with her writings, with her website, with coming on this show, because she has inside personal experience about dealing with these totalitarian thugs. Her career spanned 14 years within the New York City investment banking industry. She acquired a diverse skill set in human resourcing, technology and communication, training, education and development, business analysis, and global risk. Steph began investing actually in precious metals as far back as 1999. And she left the banking industry in 2009 after 5 years in global risk management at Citigroup. She has developed a phenomenal website, TraderStef, S-T-E-F, TraderStef.com. She hosts a live Precious Hour webinar in the past, specializing in gold, silver, and the mining equities, combined with research of industry fundamentals, financial markets, global news events, geopolitics, and monetary policy otherwise known as fusion analysis. Many of the talking heads that you see actually in the independent media talk about issues that Steph has spoken about weeks, if not months in advance. She is far ahead of the curve, which is why she is such a huge listener favorite. It's my honor to welcome back my friend, TraderStef. Steph, welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform.
Dr. Janda, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Well, let's hope it's a Happy New Year. I have a feeling that we are going to have a much better year than we did in 2020 and 2021. Steph, I want to, and the reason is because the totalitarian thug narrative is and with their bioweapon is melting. And one of the reasons why is it relates to your efforts. You have taken your analytical skills from the financial world very, very early on in this, whatever you want to call it, goat rodeo of a pandemic or pandemic or whatever you want to call it. And you applied it to what was happening from a global side. And as I mentioned in your introduction, your global risk analysis. One of the people that you have brought forward and spoken about, as I have, is Robert Malone, Dr. Robert Malone, who's the inventor of the mRNA platform that's used in the Pfizer and in the Moderna jabs. He was on Joe Rogan's show this week, and I want to play a brief clip because the fact that Malone is speaking about this now, YouTube immediately blew out this interview. It is up at Spotify. I want to play this brief clip and get your take because I believe it is indicative of this this melting of the globalist fear-mongering narrative. Derek, hit it.
Go ahead.
Our government is out of control on this, and they are lawless. They completely disregard bioethics. They completely disregard the federal common rule. They have broken all the rules that I know of, that I've been trained on for years and years and years. These mandates of an experimental vaccine are explicitly illegal. They are explicitly inconsistent with the Nuremberg Code. They're explicitly inconsistent with the Belmont Report. They are flat out illegal, and they don't care. And the only thing standing between us, and it's too late for many of our colleagues, including my, the unfortunate colleagues in the DOD. Hopefully, we're going to be able to stop them before they take our kids.
Steph, your take.
I can't believe you just played that. You know why? Because you didn't know this, but I had that same exact clip queued up that I was going to ask you if I could play.
Great minds think alike.
Oh, it's great. But just for your listeners, just so they know, in our last interview back in early November, I had mentioned that everything was not as it had appeared in China, that something else was going on for numerous reasons, including new lockdowns. They were having financial issues, and they were hoarding commodities in Taiwan. Well, very quickly, there's some rumors right now on the dark web that have surfaced that a form of hemorrhagic fever has broken out in Jian province, which is a city of 13 million people with only a few hundred COVID cases, that is in a harder lockdown since early December than it was in Wuhan 2 years ago. I find that very interesting. I don't know if it's true. I mean, they are in a lockdown, but there's something else going on that we don't necessarily know about. And this all cues in to what's going on with the great diaspora out of United States metropolitan blue state-owned cities. That's not everything that it appears either, in my humble opinion, because the mainstream media prostitutes and the municipal level apparatchiks have assumed that it was the you only lived once mentality that was driving, or the only reason that was driving, a continual wave of job resignations and movers in the pandemic area. But I think they also thought that the unemployed professionals and underemployed beatniks were secretly rooting for a guaranteed income Ponzi scheme, and the squad's socialist utopia and global great reset that's being propagandized by technocracy-loving deep throats. Look, I'm old enough to remember 9/11 and the great financial crisis. That triggered a global economic turmoil, and there were waves of career resignations. followed by the humiliation of layoffs. You know, they got sick of commuting to a 9-to-5 cubicle that was shrinking every year. And trust me, I was there. I knew it. But the plebes were then subjected to the horrifying replays of their friends and family jumping out of cubicle windows on 9/11. Mm-hmm. And then the employers threw the survivors and the patriots years later out of those windows during the great financial crisis. You know, that phenomenon was not covered in your on your idiot box or the printing press. So, yes, it truly is different this time. And it's not about a coal mining town in Appalachia that Johnny Paycheck resonated with during the Dukes of Hazzard days. Look, it's also known as the Big Quit. You know, it's different because the underlying variables of the fallout are very different. Red-pilled pandemic normies and closet libertarians are burnt out, and they're choosing to shift their home location to freer exurbs in rural America, flipping off the blue state mobs to their megalopolises and telling them to shove it. The Bolsheviks are committed to burning down the U.S., indoctrinating your children in public schools, embracing no-go zones and crime waves, and keeping the face diapers intact, and mandating inoculation passports to travel, buy, or sell anything, anywhere, and at any time. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is saying that there's a job market recovery. No, that's bull. Folks are just refilling the jobs that were lost during the pandemic, and the elites on Capitol Hill knows this, but continue to insult and awaken collective intelligence. So where are the least recognized freedom-loving hotspots versus what the Teletubbies are telling you? The Cato Institute recently updated it. Top 5. Number 1, New Hampshire, and I'm biased. 2, Florida. 3, Nevada. 4, Tennessee. 5, South Dakota. The bottom 5, Oregon, New Jersey, California, Hawaii, and New York. I find it interesting Texas isn't on that top 5 list.
I do too. I actually find it interesting that Michigan isn't on the bottom 5 list.
I agree. So then there's the stock market. You want to talk about that?
Well, let's talk about that now, folks. You know, it's a great article Steph wrote on this great resignation, or what I call pulling a galt, based on Ayn Rand's great work. TraderStef.com. That article's present. So let's talk about your stock market analysis, and let's do then gold and silver.
Okay. We're not going to go too deep because I'm kind of focused on the charts, and it's hard for listeners when they're not visually looking at a chart. So I want to try and keep this, understandable for everyone. So keep in mind that with technical analysis, the duration of the chart candlesticks provides the time frame of what to expect. So, for instance, all my charts today are done on weekly charts. So for a weekly chart, we're looking at expectations for at least a couple weeks going forward. That's a lot different than a daily chart or a 1-minute chart or a monthly chart. So the Dow, which is 30 stocks, was up 18.7% year over year. It printed an all-time high this past week, but ended with a bearish plunger candle, also known as a shooting star. But the buy volume over the last 5 weeks is trending downward with large spikes in sell volume. The S&P was up 26.9% year over year. That also printed an all-time high, but it ended with a bearish plunger candle too. The price action has been volatile, more so than on the Dow, since early November, and the sell volume is spiking into late November, but the buy volume began trending downward into the holiday season. And then we have the Nasdaq 100, which is the technology sector. Well, that was up 21.4% this year. And that closed and printed a bearish gravestone doji. And the price action has been volatile since the end of November with large sell volume spikes and falling buy volume into the holiday season. One note about the technology sector. It rallied because of the lockdowns. If Omicron recombines with the Delta variant and creates a more virulent and contagious mutant in the coming weeks or months going forward, the technology sector could rally again in response if the lockdowns get harder. And lastly, the Russell 2000 13.7% year over year. Printed a new all-time high back in October. Now, last week's rally provided the momentum that pushed the price above a trend line that closed this week at 22.42, but it has not printed an all-time new high since October. And it ended the week with a spinning top candlestick, which is indicative of indecisiveness. So overall, for all four stock indices, caution is warranted. It's a scalping environment. Mm-hmm. And layering capital into long-term positions is not recommended at this time.
And what about the precious metals?
Gold, it's a similar story, but it's different. So the gold and silver squeeze crowd are not thrilled about the paper market price. Mm-hmm. But you got to keep in mind the demand for physical bullion, coins, and premiums are as high as they were last year. Now, gold is down 3.5% this year, but there were a lot of rallies off of the lows. Now, since August of 2020, I repeatedly advised that the gold chart was ripe for scalping sweet spots, and it was prudent to wait for a decisive break through 1980 before layering large paper positions. Now, the problem with the lower highs since August 2020 is that it reinforces the resistance levels above the price that must be taken out with conviction to manifest sustained rallies. And that also applies going into 2022. But the chart has also been printing higher lows since August 2021. And that's forming, it's like coiling to the side, and it's consolidating. And there's like a triangle and a broadening bottom, as they call it. So the price surge to 1808 close before Christmas Day was very positive, and the close of 1830 on New Year's Eve was very positive. But there's substantial resistance at 1830 that has been going on since midsummer of 2021. So for a significant rally in gold to manifest in early 2022, we got to have an upside reversal in overall volume with heavy buying. The chart is right for scalping sweet spots, but remain cautious. Wait for a decisive break above 1980 before layering large core positions in paper, gold. Silver, almost the same story, slightly different. I repeatedly advised since August of 2020, don't layer large paper positions until 29 and 30 are left in the dust. So the indicators are like a mixed bag with bullish and bearish signals. And the support levels are both married to is 2149. And that has been a substantial number that has a lot of long positions below it that were accumulated before that major breakout in July 2020 that we talked about when it happened. So if gold catches a bid with a decisive rally on increased buy volume going into early 2022, silver's going to follow. If silver should breach temporarily below that 2149, it'll be very quick and short-lived. So pay attention to your charts. If you're a paper trader, you want to take advantage of that. Now, the top side resistance going forward for silver, 25.70, 29 and 30. Stacking physical at these low prices is ideal, but once again, wait for a decisive break above 29 and 30 before you layer any core paper positions back into gold or silver.
You know, folks, we're speaking with TraderStef, TraderStef.com. You know, Steph, you make a very important point, is that and you point this out just now repetitively, but you do this all the time, and it's so important. There is a differential between paper physical metals and physical precious metals. And the fact that the physical precious, the paper can be whatever. You know, the algos can, as you have repetitively pointed out for years, the algos can play havoc with those. But when it comes to the physical side, when you look at availability, at supply, at premiums, it's very, very tight right now.
Yeah, it is, which is why this year I personally switched my physical buying into a few interesting numismatics. that aren't available anymore. They're all sold out. They're gone. They're limited mintages rather than just buying straight up bullion. Because, I bought up the straight up bullion, your basic Silver Eagle or, Maple Leaf from Canada years ago. So I was looking for something a little special. But, if the world doesn't fall apart on us, Dave, before the year runs out, I'm gambling here that my numismatics are going to be worth a lot more than they would have been otherwise. So crossing my fingers, but I think it was a good investment.
Steph, educate our listeners on your website and how they can follow your writings and your activities.
Sure. TraderStef.com. So that's TraderStef, like Francis.com. And got a trading workshop there. I just dedicated a new page on the menu that's titled Pandemic. It's like an anthology of everything I've written out about over the past 2 years with regards to the pandemic. And it was like an evolving situation as new information came forward. So the narrative shifts throughout the articles. And just so everyone knows, I've added a Getter account because social media has joined the cancel culture, and they're purging a lot of people this week. So, I got an account over on Gab, and I also have an account on Getter, just in case they boot me off Twitter. And it's the same handle, at TraderStef.
Steph, we're obviously the first couple days into 2022. And this year, what do you think is going to be the biggest surprise on the financial markets and on the just global, the global market?
The Fed's taper caper. And when I say that, I mean they're attempting to taper the bond purchases to keep interest rates low.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that they're not going to raise interest rates until they complete ending the taper. They're cutting off a few $1 billion a month for the next few months. I think the surprise is going to be they're stuck. They're up against a wall.
Right.
They're kind of like in a liquidity trap of sorts because they really can't boost them interest rates much at all. Otherwise, we cannot afford to finance the national debt. So this whole thing with the taper caper, bonds, real interest rates, because gold loves real interest rates that are much lower. And that'll be a little bit to explain this late in the interview. But, I think the whole Fed thing is going to be a surprise. And that's the Fed's going to make their decisions based on what's going on with, number one, the dynamics of the pandemic. Number two, there's a lot of geopolitical hotspots going on. Mm-hmm. We got Ukraine, Taiwan, and who else?
Well, internally within China, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and everyone's forgotten about North Korea, but you know what everyone's forgetting about? The United States.
You got that right.
I don't know if it's forgotten about, but as you pointed out with that clip from Dr. Malone, he made it very clear.
He did.
And the truth is beginning to surface.
It is.
Not going to be pretty.
I agree. Steph, educate our listeners in our last minute again how they can follow you.
TraderStef.com. Have a happy New Year, everyone.
Steph, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, everything you are doing, and everything you will do. As I mentioned in your introduction, you put people so far ahead of the curve, and it is actually mind-boggling to see how many people that are seen as pundits actually rip you off and start speaking about things that you have addressed months earlier. I thank you for your courage, your perseverance, your dedication, and your tenacity. Folks, you're listening to Operation Freedom. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker link to our main freedom bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor.